Hello and welcome to this very important session at the second edition of International M.I.C.E Showcase 2.0 Virtual Summit. Well, this platform is an important forum to connect with the stakeholders of the M.I.C.E community across the globe. We are just waiting for our panelist, Dr. Edward from Singapore Tourism Board. He's there with us. He's trying to log in. Give us a moment. We'll try to wait for him for another 10-15 seconds, and then we'll start with the session. In the meantime, I would like to thank and welcome our esteemed panelists who have joined us for this session. I would like to welcome Mr. Steen Jacobson, who is the Assistant Vice President at Dubai Business Events and City Operations. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, and thank you for your upcoming session with us, where you are going to update us on the trends and updates from the MICE industry in Dubai region. We are going to welcome Ms. Sumaira Isaacs. She is the CEO at World Tourism Forum Institute. Thank you, Sumaira, for joining us, taking out your valuable time and sparing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, if we can take up a question from you, Mr. Steen. Dubai has started to reopen, and we are seeing a lot of events starting to happen there in that region. Expo 2020 is also coming up. Can you throw some light on the measures we are taking to reimpose confidence amongst the visitors that yes, Dubai is a safe destination?
Yes, well, thank you. Good morning, Rakib, and thank you for having me on the session this morning. I appreciate that. Well, here in Dubai, it's been a long journey coming out of COVID, but one that has been very successful, I would say. We were one of the first cities in the world to go into a full lockdown as one of the measures to control the pandemic. But we were also one of the first cities to open up again and to stay open. We opened our international borders for international visitors already in July last year. We resumed our events and entertainment sectors in September, October. So really since then last year, for almost a year now, we have been doing events, business events, meetings and conferences and so on, both at a local, regional and also international level. And we've been able to do that because we introduced very early on very comprehensive set of health and safety guidelines to ensure that events could happen in a safe environment while still provides the platform that meetings and conferences and business events they so importantly do. So we work very collaborative with our stakeholders across the events ecosystem, venues, organizers, hotels, other government entities to develop and create this set of health and safety guidelines to ensure that on the one side they were efficient, they could protect the organizers and the delegates and all that, but at the same time that they were so flexible and pragmatic that they allowed for events to happen and to deliver what they did. So that has really been the key to a successful resumption of the event sector here in Dubai, and we've tried and tested this on numerous events. So we're now looking into the rest of this year and also the beginning of next year, which is looking very, very successful in terms of business events coming back, both local, regional, and international. And obviously, today is a big day for Dubai and the UAE. We have the opening ceremony tonight of Expo 2020 that officially kicks off as of tomorrow, 1st of October. And of course, that will be the largest global gathering that has ever been in this part of the world. So we're very excited.
Absolutely. We wish you all the very best. And I would like to take this question to Sumaira. Sumaira, you are trying to change the world through tourism. You're doing so much for this sector. You're trying to elevate poverty. Your mission states a lot that what the capability of tourism holds for the future of humanity. Can you throw some light on your mission and vision ahead?
Thank you so much. It's. I know that this particular session is focused on mice, but where I'm operating for the bigger picture is of tourism. And if you don't attend to that picture, you miss out on the smaller details. I know the mice operators don't like to be coined as a small detail, but I think today what we are seeing, Raghav, is that the governments are engaging more when you are talking to them about the travel and tourism sector as a whole, which MICE is a part of. It's one of the subsectors of travel and tourism. The sector itself, it's a key driver of economic and intellectual and cultural growth. So COVID has brought the entire tourism ecosystem, including MICE, to a standstill. We all know that. We are all experiencing that. Our consultations with the ecosystem stakeholders and convention bureaus assert that some segments of the sector are particularly vulnerable and could face irreversible damage. Others, with prudent interventions, could weather the storm. Of course, the case study of Dubai and Singapore is different from the rest of the world. These countries have very strong fundamentals. They have the right processes, the right vision, and the right infrastructure in place to be able to generate a quick recovery. But understandably, most of the other destinations, whilst they are itching to resume MICE activity as soon as safe travel is possible, but the ecosystem is still fragile. Destinations will need to carefully align their strategies to the recovery outlook of MICE subsectors. Not all subsectors will recover, and the rate and pace of recovery will be uneven. Some of the researches that we have taken, it takes a look to the road to recovery for MICE, that how has COVID-19 changed expectations for the business travel? What can MICE destinations do to ensure a safe and fulfilling tourism experience? What strategies can MICE stakeholders use to bring conference goers and exhibitors back? So how the various segments are expected to recover, and how the destinations ecosystem players can adapt to expedite the recovery. So this is what we are all very deeply engaged with a lot of governments at the moment, and there's and of course there is an overall desire that you want the business tourism to kickstart again. But as I said, there are bigger undertakings that need to be addressed in a lot of parts of the world. There is still trepidation. There is still some concerns, and I think it's going to be an uneven recovery around the world. That is what we are seeing happening. We've seen also in countries like Australia and New Zealand, who opened up with great fiesta and then closed down again and then reopening again. So I think it's really important and prudent to have a very cautious and consistent kind of strategy. And of course, the old rule books don't apply anymore, and we have to have a new approach, new mindset on how to take this on.
Absolutely. Very well said. We need to go with a new mindset, a fresh perspective. That's how we can revive back our sector. Well, thank you so much for your comments. I'll come back to Mr. Steen now. Steen, everyone is so excited now for the Dubai Expo 2020. We know that it got delayed due to the pandemic, but now that it's kickstarting now. So what are going to be the key attractions? What measures have you taken? And what is the overall turnout you're expecting for this long event?
It is truly going to be a global celebration, and I think a celebration that the entire world really needs on the back of the pandemic. So we're just very happy that Dubai can be the platform that provides this global celebration. And it's more than 190 countries coming together to showcase their latest innovations and most creative minds. And it will truly be a celebration. There will be multiple events happening every day at the expo site. You can avail cuisines and food from all over the world. You can visit some of the thematic pavilions that comes under the themes of sustainability, mobility, and opportunity. Of course, you can visit all the individual country pavilions. And then alongside runs a very, very solid program of business events, of conferences, of summits and forums, where a lot of the challenges that we face as mankind will be discussed. They'll be debated. A lot of international experts, keynotes, and so will be brought in, so that we also, from an intellectual point of view, can use the expo as a platform to address some of those key challenges. There will be a lot of measures taken to ensure that the expo is a COVID-safe event. They have worked in collaboration with authorities across Dubai and the UAE to ensure that all the necessary measures are in place. One of the important things that has been introduced is that in order to gain access to the expo site, you either need to be fully vaccinated or you need to be able to showcase a negative PCR test. There are even testing facilities on site. So if you come to Expo, you don't have either a vaccinated or have a PCR test done recently, you could get one done on site. You can then wait for the results to come out, and then you can get access to the site. Then there'll obviously be those advice of keeping social distancing, all the measures been taken in terms of queuing systems and so on, so that there can be social distancing maintained. Mandatory wearing of face masks will also still apply throughout Expo to keep everyone safe. So the measures that are put in place, I think, are necessary, but obviously they're there to keep us all safe. And we of course need that in a global gathering where we expect millions of visitors to come over the next 6 months from all corners of the world.
Yes, millions of visitors. But still, how are you managing this complex ecosystem? Because when you are doing an event of this sort, you have to coordinate with all the different stakeholders, be it hotels, be it logistics, be it different venues. So what has been the efforts to ensure a hassle-free mechanism for the travelers so that their experience is seamless?
Well, first of all, this has been 8 years in the planning. So it's when Dubai won the bid to host the expo in November 2013, and then obviously 8 years of meticulous and detailed planning has gone into ensuring that this becomes a global world-class event. So there's been a lot of time and efforts put into it. It's been a very collaborative effort that has involved stakeholders from across not only Dubai, but the UAE, both public and private stakeholders. Everyone here in Dubai and the UAE takes a lot of pride in Expo happening. So we've all been sort of putting our best foot forward, and there's really been a lot of time and resources invested in to make sure that this could be a successful event. And of course, the fact that it sort of got delayed because of the pandemic, which was the right thing to do, I think it just underlines the importance even more of such a global event that can sort of unite us again across continents, because we haven't been able to do that for quite a while. So a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, a very, very strong leadership in Dubai and the UAE that has taken responsibility for this, and of course, a very strong expo organization in itself that has really worked tireless to make sure that everything is ready for the opening tomorrow.
Wonderful. And We have Dr. Edward with us. We'd like to ask him about what are your plans to revive the conferences, meetings, and incentive travel segment in Singapore. I hope your connectivity is fine now. Please unmute yourself, Dr. Edward. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Testing. Oh, great. Okay. Sorry for the glitches earlier on. Struggling with some issues
That's
here. Thanks for the question. For Singapore, the revival is underway. We are really taking a test, track, and vaccinate strategy. So far, we have successfully piloted about 100 events, all safe. We have this safe business events framework that we use. And so far, I think we've got thousands of delegates who attended activities. But it's still rather conservative, I would say, from my perspective. I think we can open up a bit more, which is we're headed in that direction. Our government has been trying to say we want to live with the virus endemically. So for now, currently, we are able to have events of up to 1,000 persons. If it's more of a networking sort of event, it's up to 500. So obviously for us, from the trade and industry side, we are trying to push for the boundaries, parameters to be opened up further. And it's an ongoing piece. Thank you.
Excellent. And what do you feel would be the recovery plan? Because we know now that Singapore is also a very, very important destination for MICE. And there were some concerns regarding the disruption caused by the pandemic. So how are you planning the recovery for the segment going ahead?
Firstly, we probably in a good position. A good percentage of our population is now vaccinated, about 82% by now, and slowly going up. Our plan is to open up more. Actually, there are essentially three things, right? It's the borders need to open up. Corporate travel policies, we're worried that it's getting more conservative. And the last one is obviously the delegates' concerns for safety. So our roadmap is also mapped against these various concerns. With regards to borders opening, is gradually opening. We really hope it can be faster, more similar to Dubai, but we're headed in that direction. Secondly, corporate travel policies. I think we are trying to come up with a narrative with leading stakeholders on safe travel. I think this is a fight, not just country by country. I think we probably need to work together, like Steve mentioned earlier on a regional or larger basis. For example, alignment of safety standards, alignment of borders opening standards, various things that we can put together. If not, if every country, every city has their own practice, I think we're going to struggle quite a bit, especially for the delegates.
Absolutely. I think international cooperation is also very important. And here I'd like to bring in Sumaira. Sumaira, I'd like to take in your perspective about international cooperation so that we can revive back the tourism and especially the business tourism market.
No one country can do it alone. Everybody needs to engage and everybody needs to work together. So business events, for us, like I said before, that business events is part of the bigger picture of travel and tourism. Because if you can't get that segment right, the business events themselves are going to struggle as well. So there are 4 considerations here. That there are 8 words to describe the situation, that it's unprecedented situation. There is a level of uncertainty. There is concerns. The new normal, there's a lot of is around health and safety, and then fluidity is which is like the moving landscape, ever evolving situation. So there are 4 ways to guide us in this environment, and this is what we talk to our stakeholders: relationships, flexibility. Plans need to react to changing conditions, alignment and confidence that you are going to be there for the clients, Patience, pushing hard will not move the needle. Nurture the relationships. This is very important for the business meetings industry. Innovation, what can be done to get ahead. Better processes, better ways of getting work done, and etc. And of course, in there, the responsible destinations, hotels, airlines, and convention centers have already started to integrated the new procedures like safety measures, social distancing, daily deep cleaning, remote check-ins, checkouts, just to name a few, are already taking place. But new types of digital and hybrid meetings are being developed and made available. What we are doing right now is unique, because in the sense 2 years ago we were not really using these methodologies. Technology continues to be introduced into this realm, and it's going to be key. And organizations who are going to embrace these new technologies, and it's imperative, that they do that, because otherwise they will be left behind the curve. So the situation remains very fluid. It is still unpredictable. The findings, the assumptions, the recommendations, all of that. There are several reports, several organizations, countries, who are producing reports upon reports. But I think the key to it is that everybody shares information. They are open to one another, and it's not about one destination doing better than the other. I think collectively the MICE industry has to do better, and this is certainly the case. We have seen in the last 6 months there is unpredictability, where April predictions fell short of fall recovery in a lot of countries. And I'm not talking about Singapore or Dubai. Again, these are unique models, unique countries with really, really strong fundamentals and infrastructure. But I'm talking about in Asia, there are a lot of countries which are still lagging behind. In Europe, there is still a sense of conservativeness. How the European governments are approaching things. But in Americas, in North America, US has started playing its role. They are beginning to open up. But where I'm sitting right now in Canada, they are still very, very conservative in their approach. There is still a level of concern. So I think the key here, what we are feeling is that the communication between organizations, government to government contacts, are fundamental to it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned very correctly, situation remains fluid. And you also said that technology is going to play an important role going forward. So we should rather embrace it. I'd go to Mr. Steen Jacobson. And Steen, I would like to pick up cues from Sumaira. And I'd like to take this question to you. What do you feel would be the upcoming trends that would shape up the MICE sector or business tourism in the new normal?
I think it's a question that has been debated a lot over the last 12 to 18 months, and I think it's one that's ever evolving. There are some key trends that I think will manifest themselves in the industry going forward. Obviously, as Sumaira mentioned, technology is here. Technology has been around for a while, but I think the pandemic has accelerated the use and implementation of technology in many ways. I think virtual and hybrid components are here to stay. We'll see more event organizers take advantage of these opportunities going forward so they can reach a larger audience. So I think technology is definitely something that we will see integrated into events even more. On the health and safety side of things, we've now become used to different measures implemented at events taking place. I think we will continue to see these health and safety measures in some shape or form being part of meetings and conferences going forward, simply to keep us safe. And I think everyone is aware that these things like hand sanitizers, wearing a face mask, social distancing, of course, they are a weapon against the COVID-19 pandemic, but also against regular common colds and flus and all these things, which we don't want to pick up when we go to a meeting or a conference anywhere. So I think from a health and safety point of view, we'll see that. Another thing is we may see some differences in terms of sort of the landscape of events, and what I think about here is that there is an evolving trend now where organizations are scaling back on their global international events and are more looking at doing local or regional events. So there may be a change in that landscape. We're more focused on doing sort of more sort of customized regional or local events, and then scaling back on their global events. That will, I think, be very individual from organization to organization, what they believe is the right thing for their stakeholders and for their customers and members, whether they should continue with their large global gatherings or they should do more regional events or some sort of combination in between. And the last thing I want to mention here in terms of sort of trends going forward is that face-to-face events will not go away. I think the pandemic and where we are now sort of more or less on the back side of it will show that face-to-face events will come back. But it needs to be worth our while travel to an international business event. So it needs to be, from an organizer point of view, you need to be able to ensure there's value to your delegates, to your exhibitors, to your stakeholders, so it's worthwhile for them to travel and spend money on that. There needs to be sort of personal choices, individualization or personalization of the program, the itinerary. So you as an individual delegate or attendee, that you can achieve exactly what you set out to do. So those are some of the things that will sort of, be giving challenges to organizers to ensure that there is value and it's worthwhile for us as individuals to travel to events.
Those were some very good points, Steen. And I'd like to move to Dr. Edward now. My question to you, Dr. Edward, is that as your role includes providing a strategic counsel to attract quality association congresses and corporate events in Singapore, how do you like to share that what makes Singapore a leading destination for such events like congresses and corporate events? I think we lost your voice, Dr. Edward.
I think he's muted.
Yeah.
Again, is it better now? I just switch on and off again. Testing. Okay, good.
Yes, that's fine.
Sorry, I had to switch off a few times. Right. For regards to how we are leading Singapore out of the way, I think it's also related to all the trends that Steen mentioned earlier on. I mean, hybrid events, we know it's here to stay, but hybrid events are, some say, very expensive. It's twice the cost of a normal event. So until costs start to decline, you see economy of scales, then we really see the benefits in a reasonable way for many event organizers. We do see the benefits, it's very clear. You can invite top speakers around the world at an appropriate time suitable for them. We can see more people attending. So the benefits are clear. It's also quite clear that events are possibly in near term getting smaller, more regional. And I think we just, for Singapore, we just have to go with that. But as recovery comes along, I think we will continue to leverage on our positioning as a safe destination. We'll continue to work on that. There's the SG Clean initiative. I think we've certified more than 30,000 establishments in Singapore, stringent guidelines. There's also the Safe Business Events Framework, as I mentioned earlier on. So these are things, for example, we even have the Cruise Safe certification. We love to certify things. So these are things that we're trying to build on. And we have a healthy pipeline of events coming up. We hope borders will open as quickly as possible. The Milken Institute Asia Summit, for example, in November, Gamescom in October. And so these are the flagship events that we hope us out of pandemic and into better days ahead. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Dr. Edward. And Sumara, I'd like to address my next question to you. This is not specifically for MICE tourism, because we all understand that, the the tourism has to start. Once it starts, the confidence comes back, then the business tourism automatically will revive back. Since you are in touch with different communities and globally, what do you see the trends emerging for the tourism sector, and when do you see the recovery coming? What is the confidence level of the participants? Because a lot of people are using the term revenge tourism. People are very eager to leave their homes and start traveling. In India, it has started. What is the situation in other regions?
I think there is a pent-up demand. Definitely, there is especially the younger travelers who want to get up and go. The same thing we are seeing in the MICE industry, as well as the younger operators who are sort of now taking the lead, whereas the old juggernauts, are still weighing in. You have the small MICE agencies, the smaller organizations, who are sort of, we are seeing that are beginning to take the lead. So, but when you have this younger generation who's taking the lead, they are also engaging in meaningful tourism products. They want tourism overall to change, the industry to change, and like I said, the old books rules will not apply. So we at World Tourism Forum Institute, we have been developing certain products around, because we focus primarily on investments, on tourism investments. So engaging in meaningful investments to support meaningful tourism is an important tool to achieve that goal. Over tourism was a buzzword in tourism discussions in 2019 before the virus struck. So the very success of international tourism, with 5 times the number of trips in 2019 compared to the year of 1980, had made a mockery of the idea of hospitality, and many places were suffering from the local cultural diversity. Everything was negatively impacted, and satisfaction levels of the stakeholders was low. So therefore, we feel that meaningful tourism is a new concept for the post-pandemic development of global tourism. It's a new paradigm aiming at advancing the existing concepts of sustainable and responsible tourism. It changes the predominantly supply side and often negative perspective of sustainable tourism and responsible tourism towards a demand side, and more balanced perspective promoting tourism which is meaningful for all stakeholders involved. So what will that mean? And this is what we are again engaging our stakeholders over, and for tourists to get new experience and to increase their knowledge about themselves and about others. For host communities, it will mean to have more influence on tourism development and to benefit instead of suffering from visitors. And for the staff of tourism and hospitality service providers to offer full-time career jobs, good quality service, and meaningful activities. And for governments to gain employment opportunities for their citizens, increase tax income support, friendly international relations, and eventually for the environment and encouragement for all stakeholders to be careful, more interested, causing no or at least less damage locally. So I think these sort of conversations are in the forefront now, to how to invest successfully into this new world of post-pandemic tourism. That's our focus. That's what we are driving. And for that purpose, as the World Tourism Forum Institute, we are also developing an index now, where we are covering something like 85 emerging tourism destinations, whereby we are measuring and analyzing the least developed countries where investments can be opened in a meaningful manner. But those countries have to be ready and be prepared before you drive those investments into those countries, so that the mistakes of the past are not made and expanded upon.
Indeed, you are doing a lot of work for this sector, Sumara, and no better time than now to talk about sustainable and meaningful tourism. And I'd like to invite both of our leading destinations, because this term, no one understands it better than Dubai and Singapore. Not many countries would understand. So, Steen or Dr. Edward, anybody of you would like to take up my next question? What are your comments on driving sustainable and meaningful tourism? Because this is a very important concept, and if you can correlate it with the business tourism, then of course, yes, they also need to be responsible in doing their events at your locations. The question is addressed to both of you, so anybody can take it up, and one by one we can have the answers from you.
Raghib, when I say meaningful tourism,
Steve,
of course, MICE is part of.
Absolutely. MICE is a part of meaningful tourism, yes. But now is the time when the pandemic has struck us. It has caused so much of disruption in our industry. We need to think a lot on these terms, sustainability and responsible tourism. Dr. Edward, if I'd like to ask you first, what are your comments on this?
Yes, I just thanks for that, Raghav, and thanks, Steve, for letting me go first. I think sustainability is obviously very important. The whole problem is, I think sustainability is a blue sky objective, right? It will tick all boxes. It's like it can't go wrong. Going in the direction can't go wrong. The whole problem is the how, the playbook. How are we going to get from here to there? How are we going to measure? How are we going to benchmark? In Singapore, in fact, in the headlines today in Singapore is that Mandai reserves 3 important attractions: the zoo, the night safari, and the river safari, has announced ambition to be carbon neutral by 2024, 6 years before our islands and Sentosa gets carbon neutral. So these are all ambitions, and we're all very happy about that. But it's really the journey going towards that. We've been meeting with a lot of stakeholders. Very happily, they tell us their company stakeholders are giving pressure to the company executives to pursue sustainably related activities. And that is, I think that is really awesome, because it's not just the consumers bottoms up giving pressure, there's bottoms up as well. And that gives all the other peers some pressure to do similar things. I think we should ride on the momentum. It's going to be here to stay. We're going to be measured on what we do on sustainability, and I think it should get better going forward. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And I'd like to address this to Mr. Steen also.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's very well said by Edward there. I think it's a trend that we've seen now over the last at least 10, 15 years, that there is such a focus on sustainability within tourism at large, and also the business tourism and MICE industries in particular. I think eventually it will become as important as today, that we assume Wi-Fi is available when we attend a meeting or a conference or an event. Going forward, at some point, it will be just the expectation that it will be held to the highest international standards when it comes to sustainability. There are so many initiatives that has been started, and there's a lot of organizations in this field that has done a tremendous amount of work, to create a global movement, to get stakeholders on board, to educate destinations, venues, hotels, and other operators on how to implement sustainable practices, do workshops, issue guidelines and standards, and so on. And that's work that needs to continue, because it's an ever-evolving space. But I think it all really starts with with leadership, this is something that you at a destination level that you set out to do. In many countries and cities, tourism boards, same go for us here in Dubai, takes leadership to ensure that there are not only awareness among our ecosystem and stakeholders, but also putting out standards, requirements for industry to comply with, simply to drive this development towards a more sustainable industry. And I think we'll even see more of that, because, as Edward says, it's a little bit of a no-brainer. It ticks all the boxes, and there is also an expectation from travelers, or from conference delegates, as I mentioned before, in the comparison to Wi-Fi available, that it is being done. So it is driven both as sort of at a government supplier level, but there's also from the demand side, and I think those two sides really just need to keep pushing and continue the momentum that we have on this field.
Absolutely. And I think we've had a wonderful session today. We have had some great points coming from our distinguished speakers. We are about time now. So with this, on this positive note and with the hope of revival coming very soon for our industry, I would like to thank all our distinguished speakers who have joined us today. And thank you to the attendees also for attending this session. And I wish you all the very best for the upcoming events and for this event as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Edward Koh, Mr. Steen Jacobson, and Ms. Sumaira Isaacs for joining us today for this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.